Mr. Lauren.
Here.
Mr. Hines.
Here.
Mr. Richard. Mr. Willie.
Here.
Mr. Doherty is not here. Mr. Matthews.
Here.
Mr. Davis.
Here.
Mr. Manella.
Here.
Mr. Drum.
Here.
And Mr. Randolph.
We do.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. If you would, please silence all phones and pagers at this time. All appeals cards, you may fill one out if you so choose to appeal. Our speakers' cards are to my right. Please fill one out if you are compelled to speak. For the public speaking, each side will have 10 minutes, followed by a 5-minute rebuttal. And if you want to conference, we would ask if you would respectfully leave the premise because anyone that may be speaking in the back lobby can be heard into the chambers. This time I would ask Commissioner Kasbaum for our invocation.
Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us to come out today to handle the parish business, lead us and guide us in all the decisions that we make and take us safely home. In Jesus' name, amen.
Commissioner Drum.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The June 11th, 2013 minutes were included in our draft packets. And at this time, I would ask for a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, I've read the minutes and did not see any additions or corrections that were needed. I move to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by Commissioner Matthews, second by Commissioner Hines. Please vote. Motion passes. Staff, do you have any changes to tonight's agenda?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, there's cases to be tabled requested by developers on page 2. Under tentative, I'm on preliminary subdivision review. Developers request postponement for River Club as Phase 1 and also for Ironwoods.
So under the preliminary subdivision review, SD 12-08-005P1, River Club, Phase 1, Ward 1, District 1, developer owner, River Club Development, engineer, Kelly McCune and Associates Incorporated, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean.
Mr. Chairman, I move to postpone SD 12-08-005P1.
So moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a vote. Motion passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to postpone SD 13-04-001P.
So moved. Second. SD 13-04-001P, Ironwoods, Ward 6, District 6, developer owner, Weyerhaeuser Real Estate Development, engineer Kelly McCune and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, Honorable Richard Tanner. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a vote. The motion passes. Thank you. Consent calendar, performance obligations and entering parish rights of way. Any items not pulled from the consent calendar are automatically dispensed by vote as approved and/or as per staff comments. Items pulled from the consent calendar shall be discussed and voted upon individually. Commissioner Matthews.
Mr. Chairman, I move to pull MS 13-06-026 and 027.
Motion has been made. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Randolph. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I ask for a vote. The motion passes. Minor subdivisions. Oh, excuse me. Yes. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the remainder of the consent calendar.
So moved. Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes. Minor subdivisions. MS 13-06-026, a 19.7481 acre parcel into parcels 1-R, 2-R, and 3-R, Ward 9, District 14. Owner, Rotolo Consultants Incorporated. Surveyor, Kelly McCune and Associates, Inc. Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable T.J. Smith. Mr. Shane.
Staff
Oh,
comments?
excuse me, staff comments?
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a 19.75 acre tract. The owner of the property is proposing to create a minor subdivision to create 3 lots. One parcel, and since a public hearing is required, since one of the parcels is being accessed by a private drive. Again, the owner is proposing to create 3 parcels from one parent parcel. And since a private drive will only provide access to one parcel within the minor subdivision, said drive is not required to be built to a parish standard pursuant to Section 40-045 minimum standards for a private drive of subdivision ordinance 499. Therefore, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision request.
Now, Mr. Shane.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Honorable Commission. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington, and I represent the owner-developer Rotolo Consultants, Inc. The staff report, I think, speaks for itself. Since the item was pulled, I thought I would come to the podium in the event that there were any questions that I needed to address.
Are there any questions for Mr. Shane at this time from the commission?
Okay.
Mr. Matthews?
I wondered if there was any opposition. Mr. Shane, my question, I guess this is really to staff too. We're creating 3 lots, and at least one of them will have no access. Is that what we're doing?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay.
There's a servitude, if you look, maybe the map's a little small for you to read, but there is a servitude that comes off of Brown Switch Road down the middle of the property that accesses that rear parcel. That's to be a
Okay.
private drive.
All right. Well, let me go one step further. There's another one coming up right after this, and we are requiring that the drive be built to the parish standards. What's the difference between this one and the one following?
There's an exemption from the requirements to build a private drive to a parish standard when only one parcel is being accessed with that private drive. 2 or
Okay.
more requires the private drive construction.
Okay, that answers my question. I didn't know that. Motion to approve then.
Question? Even though these are private drives, the parish has no responsibility to maintain these, do they? That's correct. Okay.
Any further questions?
Yeah,
Mr. Shane?
I might add that the development plan for this tract, that's a 60-foot right-of-way. Actually, it's going to be a hard surface drive that will exceed the width of parish for a parish mandated or parish maintained road because it is zoned industrial. You may remember zoning this tract 3 months ago, 4 months ago, somewhere in that range. So I just wanted you to know, as a practical matter, this will be a state-of-the-art road that will service the rear lot. but it will be a private drive that will be maintained by the developer.
Very good. Is there any opposition in the audience? Hearing none, I bring it back to the commission. Motion is made and seconded. Any further questions? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes. MS 13-06-027, a 4,343 plus or minus acre parcel into lots 4 through 7 and lot 16, wards 5 and 6, District 6. Owner, Money Hill Plantation LLC. Surveyor, John E. Bono and Associates Incorporated. Parish Council District Representative, Honorable Richard Tanner. Mr. Staff comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a approximate 4,343 acre tract of land, excuse me, owned by Money Hill Plantation. The reason for the public hearing is more than one parcel is being accessed by a private drive. The owner of the property is proposing to re-subdivide a very large parent parcel into a total of 5 parcels and provide access to 4 of the parcels via a private drive. If you look on your survey attached, you can see that layout. Said proposal complies with parish code requirements subject to the construction of said private drive. Therefore, the staff has no objections to the proposed minor subdivision request subject to the following comment. A, the private drive to be constructed and/or improved must meet all applicable parish road construction standards pursuant to section 40-045.01, minimum construction standards for a private drive is subdivision ordinance 499, prior to the survey plat being recorded for public record.
Mr. Shane.
Thank you. Jeff Shane again, Jones Fussell Law Firm in Covington, representing Money Hill Plantation, which is the owner and developer. No additional comments unless you have any questions.
Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Chairman, I pulled this because of the previous case. I didn't understand why one required building the road to parish specs and the other one didn't. Now that I understand it, thank you from our staff, I move to approve.
Second.
So moved and seconded. Is there any opposition? Hearing none. Commission, any other questions? Please vote. Motion carries. Thank you. Petitions and requests, none. Entering the Tammany trace, none. Revocations, closing review, we have none. Re-subdivision review. RS 13-06-058, Red Gap Acres, Block 3, Lot 10 into Lots 10A and 10B, Ward 4, District 5. Petitioner Nola Walsh for Quinnen H. Brady Senior Estate. Surveyor, LS Land Surveying, Inc. Owner, Nola Walsh for Quinnen H. Brady Senior Estate. Parish Council District Representative, Honorable Marty Gould. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like I said, these are, this is one lot that's located in Red Gap Acres, Block 3. Ms. Nola Walsh, who is the executrix of the estate for Quentin B. Brady Sr., is requesting the property to be re-subdivided into 2 smaller parcels in order to equally distribute the property between the siblings of the family. The owner is proposing to re-subdivide with each lot having a 100-foot frontage by 405.2 feet in depth. The said proposal meets parish code requirements relative to lot area. However, the proposal falls short of the parish minimum 150-foot lot frontage requirement for each lot. Hence the reason for the requirement for the public hearing. A review of our records for Red Gap subdivision indicates that precedent has been established by the Planning Commission insofar as permitting some re-subdivisions of lots within this subdivision to have as little as 100-foot frontages. Therefore, since both parcels meet the parish minimum requirements for lot area, which is 40,000 square feet, and given the fact that precedence has been established by the commission for the 100-foot wide lot widths, the staff has no objection to the proposed re-subdivision request. However, if the commission decides to grant the re-subdivision request, a waiver of the parish regulations is required pursuant to Section 40-100 Waiver of Regulations relative to the insufficient lot width, which does require a two-thirds majority vote of the commission, which is 8 members, in order to grant said waiver.
Petitioners present,
Yes,
please state your name.
I'm Nola Walsh, Nola Brady Walsh, and this is my sister.
I'm Tanya Brady Bruce.
Am I supposed to?
We don't know what to do.
Do you have anything
This
to
is
add?
obviously my first time. I don't know if there's anything that y'all need from us other than what was stated there.
Do you have
Do you-
anything to add to what the staff has said?
No,
We would like for y'all to favor us.
I think like Mr. Goldman said, that Ron Keller said that the other lots in Red Gap Acres have the same frontage, the 100 by 405. This wouldn't be an exception. This would probably be more common, the 100 by 405, the frontage, so.
Okay.
That's,
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, I open it to the commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Matthews?
since obviously you all are planning on dividing this piece of property among yourselves, is that what I understand from the succession?
yes, sir. This is something my dad had planned on doing before he actually died. He had the paperwork. I think that he must have thought that it was already done. I thought it was done. When I went up to the courthouse to go through the succession paperwork, it was just until recently that I realized that it wasn't all the way 100% through. He had already paid the land survey money to do the re-subdividing of it.
Good. Since 100 foot is really sufficient to put a house and a drive and make a reasonable building lot, and there are several lots, if not most of the lots in this subdivision are this size, I would move that we accept this and grant a waiver from the 150-foot requirement.
I'll second that.
Second, Ms. Cosby. Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Okay. Dormant subdivision reviews, we have none. Tentative subdivision review. SD 13-07-003, Berkshire, Ward 8, District 9, developer owner Berkshire Partners LLC, engineer J.V. Burks and Associates Incorporated, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Gene Bellisario. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposal for a new subdivision, Berkshire, which was actually formerly part of Oakley Place. The zoning commission at their June the 4th, 2013 meeting reviewed and approved a major change to the PUD for this development, formerly known as future phases of Oakley Place subdivision, which included the renaming of the subdivision to Berkshire and minor adjustments to the lots and streets therein. Staff comments, number one, the proposed development has jurisdictional wetlands. Therefore, the developer should be required to submit a copy of an approved Army Corps of Engineers permit to the Department of Engineering prior to receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process. Number two, the last comments under the general notes information block should be amended to read from may be limited to no cut, and that's regarding the no cut buffer, to will be limited to no cut. Number 3, the developer has depicted green space and amenities within the development pursuant to Parish Code requirements. Therefore, the developer should be prepared to present a recreational development plan for staff review and approval prior to the developer receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary approval process. An additional informational item, Parish Code requires a land clearing permit to be applied for and obtained through the Department of Development prior to the developer receiving a work order in conjunction with the preliminary subdivision review process. The staff recommends approval, subject to the developer complying with all staff comments. Engineering has some comments.
Restrictive covenant number 6 should also state that the finished floor elevation must be at least 1 foot above the crown of the road. The signature line should replace parish engineer with director of Department of Engineering. The traffic study that was performed for Oakley Place included these lots. No further traffic study will be required. Some informational items for the future preliminary submittal. A drainage easement beyond the subdivision limit may be needed to drain the retention pond. A drainage easement may be needed in the unnamed cul-de-sac going to the pond. The typical street cross-section must show a side slope no steeper than 3 horizontal, 1 vertical, and a minimum of 4-foot shoulder on each side. Floodplain storage, if any, must be maintained. Needs stormwater site plan, including BMP selection, placement with legend, and BMP details for preliminary. Need a copy of LDEQ stormwater permit letter with AIN prior to work order. Need a copy of the SWIP maintained on construction site for stormwater inspections. Ultimate stormwater disposal is to the West Pearl River, a scenic river. Check with Wildlife and Fisheries regarding the necessity of a scenic river permit. At a minimum, adequate BMPs must be employed to prevent adverse drainage impacts to the river.
Speaking in favor?
My name's Steve DeVerney, Mr. Chairman. I'm here representing the developer and the owner of the subject property. Should I go ahead and make my comments known now?
Yes, please.
Okay. As Ron mentioned, this project's probably familiar to most of you. It came up at the June Zoning Commission meeting. At the time, we asked for a major amendment to the existing PUD, and that was brought about due to the fact that we were able to avoid more wetlands than the original plan. And by doing so, not only we avoided wetlands, we also added more green space than we had before. That was unanimously approved by this board. There was no opposition. You might recall, even had a gentleman from the audience come up. It was a neighbor who expressed an interest in the project. That we had no concerns whatsoever. We certainly have looked at all the staff comments. We fully are committed to provide whatever information they need in addition to these comments, and we request your approval.
Commissioner Bud?
Mr. DeVerney, just to make sure the
Yes, sir.
English is straight, there's quite a lengthy list of items here, and you said you'd provide additional information. Are you saying you will comply with these?
Yes, sir. As you go through this list, most of it is for informational purposes of information that will be required in the future. We had made our original submission of the plat. Ron gave us a list of changes to the plat, which we've already made. Some of the comments that are on here now from engineering, some of the very small ones dealing with, instead of saying parish engineer, say director of Department of Engineering. You'll note on your plat that's already been changed. So this is more of a checklist and notifying us today that we have to have these done long before we get a work order. It's our goal always is to submit these same things at the same time we submit for our preliminary approval, recreational development plans, all those things that we already have, the restrictions. So yes, this I'm assuming is more or less a checklist for everything that could come up that we need to be aware of today that will have to be provided long before we get a work order. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Matthews?
I think Jimmy had his light on first.
Okay. Commissioner Davis?
Yes, my question about this proposed flood zone, is that being reviewed right now by the Corps?
You know, I'm not sure. I think and they're not the Corps. The Corps has already done a delineation on it. I think this proposed a potential floodplain. I think that's Burke's comment on it. I don't know if it has anything to do with all the conversation we're hearing about elevation changes and this sort of thing. But for whatever reason, they thought it was important to put on there, and I think it was more important from our standpoint that we made sure that we could adjust our lots to avoid it. You'll see, we only got one lot out of all 91 of these that's got any wetlands on it whatsoever. So why he calls it proposed flood zone, I think that's an indication to us that there's a potential that it could change from where it is now. Because you'll see within this presentation and on the survey plat itself, it says flood zone C.
Right. It's
So,
just
so I think they're
entire-
saying, hey, you know, we might be close here.
Well, I just question that because, I mean, when they see this, I don't know whether or not that means it's being reviewed by someone or maybe they're gonna go reclassify this to flood zone B or even C.
I can explain. The
Thank you.
preliminary flood zone map is being held by FEMA right now. The St. Tammany Parish is disputing certain aspects of it, not related to this development, but in other areas, and we're submitting some additional information to FEMA, and we're kind of back and forth right now, and once we get satisfied, then FEMA will post the final map, and that'll probably be around the end of the year.
Okay, and since this is gonna be in phase 2 anyway, that would probably give you enough.
Absolutely. I think it's kind of an indication to all of us to be aware that it could change from where it is now to where it may ultimately be.
That was the one concern I have.
Right, and we're fully aware of it.
Thank you.
Commissioner Matthews?
Yep, Mr. Director. The Planning Department's comment number 3 talks about the recreational development plan.
Right.
And since the Oakley Place subdivision will be using the recreation facilities of Berkshire, I'm concerned, when do you plan on putting these in? Are you going to wait till the 3rd or 4th
Now,
phase?
what we have
Because
to
I think
do
we
is,
ought to
when we do
move
our
up.
recreational development plan, we have to tell you then a timetable is when each one of those different items come about. For instance, we're going to put in this pod, let's call it, or we'll put in the full the jogging path in conjunction with phase 1. So all that's clearly defined in this recreational development plan, which comes to you the next time we have a meeting.
No, I understand that.
Yes, sir.
But what I'm telling you is, since this is a little different, we have another subdivision that is planning on using
Right.
these. If you wait till the 3rd or 4th
We're not.
phase, then I don't think that's going to be fair to the other subdivision. I'd like to see at least the walking path be in that first phase.
Which is not a problem. We intended, you're going to probably see all of it go in at the same time. I mean, you can't have half of a walking path. You can't have half the workout stations,
I
you know,
understand
from
that.
the development side and the marketability of the product itself. We're going to have to put those things in early on.
Right, and I'd like to see them in that first phase. The proposed flood zone thing, it looks like there are actually 3 lots that have a portion. 20 has a very small portion, 18 has a little bit larger but still a small portion, and 19. If these do fall in the flood zone, you're going to have to raise, I guess, the houses in all 3 of these lots?
No,
No?
no. No, I mean, if we're in flood zone C now, it would have to be something monumentally different for us to have to raise those houses to meet the minimum finished elevation that the parish is going to require, and FEMA does also. And the reality, too, is if you look at them, other than lot 19, 20, man, that is so close. I don't, you know, whether, but let's take 18. I mean, it's in the area that's, it's outside the building pad that would be permitted. It's in the setbacks.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, you know, we certainly have plenty enough room to build that house and still be, and I'll tell you that, well, my suggestion would be, let's say if it was a concern, we'd move the cul-de-sac over a little bit, you know, between now and the preliminary and get it out of there.
Well,
I mean, we're talking,
you're encroaching in the wetlands and the green space. If
no, what I'm talking about, if it became apparent to us that there was a real good reason to get out of this, what could be a proposed flood zone, we would just shift the lots towards the cul-de-sac. We would just move those lots. We could adjust the property lines. I mean, all the lots are a whole lot bigger. You follow what I'm saying? We could move the lot out of that flood zone. We got such a little bit of it in it anyway, if it ever comes about.
Okay.
We could adjust those lot lines, still meet the parish minimum requirements, and still be outside of flood zone.
Okay, one other question I have here, and it's for the future, but I want to know what type of plans you all would have. There's talking about a drainage easement, and I guess it's on Berkshire Drive where it comes in, where it says Phase 2, the cul-de-sac. What type of a drainage easement? Where would you put a drainage easement for that?
I have no idea, and I don't say that lightly. But I think I sat in on a meeting not too long ago when they talked about proposed easements to handle sewer runoff from an on-site treatment facility, and that was the first time I ever heard about the potential for having those types of easements. Now I think what and because engineering is going to have a comment about it may be needed. Doesn't say you got to. I think as we go through this process, it'll either determine whether or not there's sufficient easements, or we need to create an easement, or whatever. But I have a sneaky suspicion we're going to see these same comments on all projects from here on out at the tentative level, that you may have to create some easements if necessary. Nobody's saying they're required yet, and I don't think until we get our actual preliminary plans and our drainage studies and all that in here, everybody looks at it. But I mean, whatever it is, if it's a requirement, we're going to have to do it.
What I was referring to is draining this cul-de-sac to the retention pond. It looks like probably somewhere near lot 19, you would have a drainage easement along one of the side property lines to get from the street to the pond.
Right.
Like, I'm just.
Yeah. I mean, it's all,
and
those
I
are
understand this is
engineering
tentative,
questions.
And that's probably preliminary.
Yes, sir.
But I want you to realize we're going to be looking at this at the next time it comes around.
Absolutely. I mean, this complete list goes right to our engineers, and then they get together with Department of Engineering. Sean will get with y'all, and they always work these things out.
Mr. Chairman, Jim, you got something more to say?
One other question, my kudos to the planning department for putting in the informational for future preliminary submittal. Is that the first time we've ever done that?
Like it.
I've just never seen that. I like that. Where you actually put in there and just for submit, I like that. I'm just saying.
Per your request several months ago, that's what we did.
I noticed that and I just want to say thank you.
Yeah, I thought we started that a month or two ago, but yeah, that was the commission's request, so we started doing that before we had it all together, and
I appreciate it.
sure.
Are there any further questions? Is there any opposition?
Mr. Chairman,
Hearing none, I open it back to the commission.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
So moved. For the second. Mr. Lawrence, second. All in, please vote. Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much.
SD 04-01-002 PD2, Gust Island Estates, Parcel D-2, Ward 1, District 4, developer owner Gust Island Holding Company LLC, engineer Kelly McCune and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative Honorable Reed Faulkner. Staff?
The preliminary plans and hydrologic study have been reviewed by this office and inspections made of the site. It is recommended that preliminary submittal be approved subject to the following. Specify concrete culverts on the driveway schedule. A funded maintenance obligation in the amount of $10,000 is required in accordance with subdivision ordinance 499 for existing parish roads to ensure the repair of any damage to parish roads resulting from construction activity in connection with the subdivision. No mandatory developmental fee is required at final submittal in accordance with ordinance 499 since the public hearing was held prior to January 1st, 2005.
Mr.
Good
Shane?
evening. Jeff Shane of the Jones Fussell firm. I represent the developer, Gust Island Estates. We believe that we've presented everything that's needed for preliminary approval and ask that you so grant it.
Are there any questions? Mr. Davis?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Is there any opposition? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes. Final subdivision review, we have none. Proposed amendments to ordinance 499, we have none. Old business, SD 06-06-020. Ottoman Creek 2, Ward 1, District 1, developer, owner, Ottoman Creek 2 LLC, engineer, Resilier Engineering and Consulting LLC, Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable Marty Dean. Request to rename the subdivision to Spring Haven and to rename streets. Please state your name.
Donnie
What-
Jenkins with
Oh,
Autumn Creek.
excuse me.
Yeah,
One
staff-
second.
staff
Staff.
comments. Yeah, it just, if you look in your packet under old business, there's a letter there from Autumn Creek 2 LLC, basically stating what what you just read out. They are requesting to change the name of the subdivision to Spring Haven. We researched that, and that's fine. And our 911 addressing officer has approved the street name changes that are listed in that letter. So with that, the staff has no objections.
And
Please
the
state your
reason
name.
for this name change is originally, Autumn Creek 2 was going to go through Autumn Creek, and the residents didn't want that connection made, so we had to put an entrance off of Dummy Line Road, in which we wanted to rename the subdivision, being it wasn't affiliated with Autumn Creek.
That's it, we just was asking for y'all's approval.
Mr. Matthews.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve, particularly since the Sweet Pea Court, Sweet Pea is what I call my granddaughter, so I really approve of this.
And I appreciate that one, that's got a special thing behind it too.
Commissioner Casabon?
Yeah, Donnie, I was gonna ask you, this particular one, was that recreation and that green space, was that connected to those two? Do we have separate?
It's separate.
It's separate, because remember when we first did it,
Well,
it was
Autumn
part
Creek,
and then,
The first part
right,
did the garden homes, which is connected to the Autumn Creek.
okay, and then I knew it was a different phase and stuff, okay.
We have a motion. Second. Any further questions? Hearing none, I call for a vote. Motion carries. SD 06-12-047P, Prudent Creek, resubmitted, Ward 3, District 3, developer, owner, Prudent Creek Properties, LLC, engineer, Kelly McCune and Associates, Inc., Parish Council District Representative, the Honorable James Red Thompson. Correction to former staff report to establish $10,000 maintenance obligation. Staff?
The above referenced subdivision was granted preliminary approval at the June 11, 2013 meeting. The following statement was approved at the meeting. There is a current $10,000 maintenance obligation on file in the Department of Finance office. However, the maintenance obligation on file is under the name of the previous developer and is in the process of being released. Therefore, a $10,000 maintenance obligation needs to be established by the current developer, Prudent Creek Partners, LLC. The following actions required by the Planning Commission to correct the preliminary approval requirement. Establish a $10,000 maintenance obligation for a period of 6 months.
Mr. Shane?
Good evening again, hopefully for the last time. I represent Prudent Creek Developers. We understand the era, and certainly as the new representative of the new developer concur with this requirement, and we'll post the bond at the appropriate time.
Ms. Casabon?
I'll make a motion to approve this maintenance
Second.
on $10,000
Second.
for 6 months.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, motion has been made and seconded. Any further questions? Please vote. Motion carries. Is there any new business? Hearing none, Commissioner Hines has asked for a point of personal privilege to address the commission.
Mr. Chairman, last week at the zoning commission, I objected to something that Mr. Matthews had to say. The verbiage that I used and the words that I used to object to him was inappropriate, and I went to Mr. Matthews and I apologized to him afterwards, and I'd like to apologize to this commission now for making those comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
I move we
Matthews?
adjourn.
well, one quick thing.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to congratulate you for your first meeting chairing it. You did a great job. Hopefully you won't have to sit through that again.
Not a problem. Do we have a motion to adjourn?